After saying goodnight to each other, the online dating partner posted a circle of friends, paid to ask for fake photos, to the original picture, the type of milk dog is preferred, to have abdominal muscles, don't come to the circle of money. Hurry, hurry. Then I saw that my ex-boyfriend deducted a 1 under his comment. I thought for a moment and followed the comment, deducting a 6. During the National Day holiday, I went out to dinner with my roommates to play Truth or Dare, and I lost, and the punishment was to shake it in public, and the first voice of the opposite sex to shake. I thought it would definitely be a middle-aged greasy uncle, but I didn't expect to shake a milk dog brother with a nice voice. The milk dog is a sister, and she is still a brother from the same university as me. My long dormant girl's heart shook again. That's how we talked about online dating. On the first day of taking off the list, I ordered milk tea for my brother's whole dormitory, a big brand, a cup of 32 yuan, and then successfully harvested my brother's 6 kisses. Okay, it's worth it. The next day, my brother and his roommate went out to play without enough money, so I transferred 1,500 yuan. On the third day, my younger brother sent 2 Taobao screenshots, a new sneaker of a certain brand, a pair of 6,800 yuan. In my roommate's eyes as if he was looking at him retarded, I figured something was wrong. My brother is using me as an ATM machine to make money. Coincidentally, my sister has nothing else, but a lot of money. If my brother is handsome enough, I don't mind spending money on happiness. So I asked him for a photo that night. Who wants his younger brother to be silent for 3 minutes, and sent a voice. Sister, will you shoot it tomorrow? The lights are out in the dormitory, and I don't want to disturb my roommates. After all, my sister knows, and my roommates don't like me very much. Indeed, my brother has complained to me more than once about his prince's sick roommate, and the prince's licking dogs. I replied, yes, and the next second I saw my brother post a circle of friends, paid to ask for fake photos, to the original po, the type of milk dog is preferred, to be large scale, able to rub the edges, and have abdominal muscles, don't come to the circle of money. Hurry, hurry. I saw that I was really in a hurry, and I forgot to block me. A good milk dog brother turned out to be a werewolf and blew himself up. I lowered my head in a second, and the deer in my heart lit a cigarette, and scolded me for being a fool. Screenshot of the circle of friends. I was going to get together with this liar brother, but before the news was sent, I saw an extremely familiar avatar popping out from under the circle of friends just now. I took a closer look, and the name was more familiar than the avatar, and it was a note that I had typed with my own hand. Alvis Hoil replied to the comment, 111. Hiss. I laughed at it. My online dating partner solicited fake photos, my ex-boyfriend deducted 1 to sign up, the flood washed the Dragon King temple, and the family didn't know the family. It's really good, Alvis Hoil. It's all mixed up to make money by selling photos. It's really promising. After a moment's thought, I followed his comment and deducted a 6. This time, I didn't even bother to speak, so I directly deleted the liar and blocked it. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt that something was wrong. Why is Alvis Hoil a mutual friend of me and him? Does he know this liar? Before I could come up with a reason, the news of Alvis Hoil had already popped up. Alvis Hoil. Alvis Hoil, are you the online dating partner of the peerless little milk dog? Me, I'm not. I don't talk nonsense. Alvis Hoil, what a cow Moira wolf, playing with such flowers after you broke up with me. I also said, it is not surprising that any big fool cup can be cheated out of money by this kind of trick. Me, do you know a dog liar? Me, yes, it's not surprising that dogs and dogs are friends. Me, don't talk about me, you've been reduced to making money by selling photos, don't laugh at our second brother. After a while, Alvis Hoil didn't reply, and I was immersed in the pleasure of scolding my ex-boyfriend for winning, and sent another one with my hand. Me, if you are so short of money, why should I help you? After all, it's better than 1. Alvis Hoil, okay. Dumbfounded, it's become me. No, what's going on with Alvis Hoil? Me, you've been taken away. Alvis Hoil, 50 bucks. I was going to sell pictures of the puppy to sell you. Do you want it? The word, don't, has been typed, and I suddenly remembered the description of the circle of friends. The scale is large, there are abdominal muscles, and the edge can be rubbed. I swallowed and turned 500 yuan over. Alvis Hoil collected the money happily, and the video was also played. I subconsciously clicked on it, and I saw a blurry shadow appear in front of me. Alvis Hoil appears to have just smoked a cigarette, and has a somewhat hoarse voice. Can you hear me? Sister. My heart tingled, and I moved my phone a little farther away. What is your name, sister? Aren't you posting photos? What are you doing with videos? Alvis Hoil chuckled softly on his phone, lustful and furious. I want 50 yuan, you give 500 yuan, don't you want to upgrade the service? Let's talk about it. Moira Wolf, how big do you want to see? Want me to wipe it? I silently recited the mantra 3 times, trying to make my voice sound cold. I'm the boss, you're the boss. Fix yours. Okay. Alvis Hoil's voice is always lazy, with the energy of a hanger, and everything he says is like a yin and yang, and now it is no exception. When he calls me sister, I feel like I am being scolded. It really reminded me how I was cheated of 2,000 yuan. The blurred shadow moved. Alvis Hoil looked like he hadn't come home from vacation, still in his dormitory, surrounded by airtight curtains. He turned on a small night light, and the angular outline became clear. Those narrow eyes were looking at me with a smile, their messy hair hanging down in front of their foreheads, and a red stud earring in their left ear. Are you satisfied, sister? That's it. I didn't turn on the camera on my side, and said coldly with a blushing face, thinking that I was pretending to be flawless. Alvis Hoil smiled again, his slender fingers running over his collarbone, his phone going down a little bit, and he lifted the hem of his t-shirt to reveal his tight 8-pack. I was watching it energetically, and the video suddenly appeared, which made me anxious, and I couldn't help but smack. Alvis Hoil's underwhelming voice rang out. What's wrong? Dislike. I snuck away the tears that flowed from my mouth, still firm. What's so nice about my stomach? Who doesn't have it, really? Alvis Hoil said nonchalantly. Are you sure? You want to see something I have that you don't have? What? After I reacted, my brain was about to explode, and my hand hung up the video faster than my mouth. I raised my hand and touched my hot ear, but I felt a small piercing. Same as Alvis Hoil's, except he is in the left ear, and I am in the right ear. The phone vibrate, and I calmed down before I clicked on it, and took a look. It's a photo from Alvis Hoil. He opened his mouth and grabbed the hem of his t-shirt, revealing a flat chest and a piece of abs, and even that fleshy pink. The other hand tugged at the hem of his trousers, and the not-so-bright light cast a gray shadow on him. Even though only half of his face is exposed, the color gas that rushes to his face can't stop it, especially since I will automatically complete his entire face. I quickly poured a glass of water to suppress the shock. After struggling for a long time, I pressed and held the photo and clicked save, and then rushed to the album to transfer to the encrypted space, which was relieved. Alvis Hoil said, after sales service, good night, by the way, milk tea is delicious. I didn't reply, but the thought that Alvis Hoil might not be the first time selling these kinds of pictures to make money made me wanted to drag him out of the pig pen. Not male at all. Thinking about it, I quit Weshit, clicked on Alip, and transferred another 50,000 yuan to him, and remarked, stop selling photos or videos. After a while, I couldn't bear to watch my ex-boyfriend do this to myself. As a result, the next day, as soon as I woke up, I received 3 messages from Alvis Hoil. It's a photo of him wearing a frock vest, and sweating all over the workout. Didn't slap his face, but he was very sexy. How is this man? What if you don't listen to persuasion? I silently saved again, thinking about how to persuade people to the right path, but my roommate suddenly lifted the curtain of my bed. Still sleeping. Check it out, your ex-boyfriend got into a fight with someone else. It is said that the scene was a blur of flesh and blood, and arms and legs flew wildly. I chuckled in my heart, and performed a sitting up in a dying illness on the spot. When I arrived at the scene, the fight was almost over. Alvis Hoil crushed the victory, and his hair was not messed up at all. Look at the boy who was hammered to the ground by him, with tears and snot on his face, and his mouth was scolding and unclean. Seeing that Alvis Hoil was about to get on his feet, I didn't think about it and shouted, heap people under your feet. HMMM. Look at the rows of lively little heads, and look back at me like sunflowers. Seeing that I was coming, Alvis Hoil casually withdrew his leg and beckoned at me. Come here. In front of everyone, I was nervous for a moment, and walked over hand and foot, and the crowd erupted into a burst of laughter. My face flushed, and Alvis Hoil smiled and called me, "Little fool, you're stupid. Okay, let's see if he lied to you." I came to my senses, and Alvis Hoil had a fight with a liar for me. But, dog liars and I have a school. Alvis Hoil clapped his hands in a weird way. Not only that, it's still my roommate. You say how good you are, Moira Wolf. Even the two partners are in the same dormitory. I looked at the boy lying on the ground, who looked like a street kid, and goosebumps were rising. Don't insult my aesthetics so much. Insulting me is insulting yourself. Alvis Hoil snorted, kicked the liar with his foot, and said impatiently, "Speak." The liar was obviously scared, but felt ashamed, so he hummed and threw out a sentence. "Familiar clips, familiar milk dog sounds." I nodded, "That's him." In the next second, Alvis Hoil pulled a wallet out of the crook's pocket, took out all the cash, and stuffed it into my pocket. I was blindfolded, and I tugged at the corner of his clothes. In broad daylight. Do we count this as a partnership robbery? Alvis Hoil scoffed. Then you ask him if he dares to call the police. Alvis Hoil is awesome. Alvis Hoil is fierce. Although I have too much money to spend, I don't want to contribute to a liar for nothing. Especially, the crook had a bad life, and was in a dorm room with Alvis Hoil. It was as if I had seen his miserable college life, and before I could mourn for him for a second, Alvis Hoil dragged him away by the collar. "Do you a favor, don't you thank me?" "Thank you, I'm a good guy. Hey, go down the slope and get off the donkey." Alvis Hoil was a little speechless by me, and for a moment, said, "Just thanks." I looked at him and realized, Lisuo took out the money in his pocket, and stuffed it into his hand. "I know you've been in trouble lately, but no matter how difficult it is, you can't sell your photos. You take this money, it's not enough to tell me again, don't take a detour." Alvis Hoil laughed at me. He leaned over and put the money in my pocket, his warm breath on my face. Then he put his free hands under my armpits, picked me up like a child, and carried me into a small narrow passage next to me. Only then did I realize that I had unknowingly followed him to the back door, the no man's land of the school, which was famous and haunted. Alvis Hoil condescendingly pushed me against the wall, smiling a little dangerously. "Moira Wolf, are you really arrogant to me?" Alvis Hoil got closer and closer. I was breathing heavily, and my face was hot. His eyes were dark, and he grabbed my hand, and pressed it against his abs through his clothes. He wore a soft t-shirt today, and when he pressed his hand, he could clearly feel the hard lines under the clothes. This kind of temptation is really difficult for ordinary people to resist. I moved my fingers slightly, thinking about sneaking a little and then turning my face, and Alvis Hoil wouldn't find out anyway. But in the next second, he snorted, and one leg was even pressed between my legs. "You touched it." I turned my face away from his gaze, and my mouth was stiff. "I didn't." "You took my hand and touched it." Alvis Hoil was so tall and oppressive that it made me uncomfortable with his hands and legs. But I couldn't run. "Moira Wolf, why don't you look at me?" "Can't." "What's not to dare?" I turned my head to look straight in, only to see the unhidden desire in his eyes. I turned my head again. "Alvis Hoil, can you please stop going crazy?" "No," he said. "You didn't know I was crazy the first day." Inopportunely, my stomach growled. Alvis Hoil looked frustrated, and took 2 steps back against the opposite wall. "Let's go. I'll take you to eat." I saw the right moment, left up, no, and fled quickly in a 100-meter sprint. Alvis Hoil was left behind me and still didn't move, staring at my back. Not knowing what he was thinking, I suddenly remembered. It seems that every time I am with him, he looks at my back, and asks me to go first. "So that liar said that the prince's sick roommate is your ex-boyfriend." I brought my roommate some food back, so she listened to me intimately. I took a sip of milk tea and nodded violently. "I just said that I always feel that the person he describes seems familiar." The roommate laughed twice, then lowered his voice and leaned over. "Moira Wolf, tell me, you and Alvis Hoil, what exactly broke up for?" Hearing this, a pearl in the milk tea blocked my throat, and I coughed a few times, choking on a cloud of mist in front of my eyes. "Why did you break up with Alvis Hoil?" "That's a good question. Come on, I've wanted to ask for a long time. Alvis Hoil is so handsome. Don't you let him talk about online dating?" I glanced at her. "I really want to know." The roommate nodded wildly. I sighed and sipped out the milk tea with a smoke momentum. Because he's so sassy, prodigal and sassy, I really can't handle it. Roommate, oh, to tell you the truth, I have a friend who is terminally ill. So can you elaborate on what kind of it is? The word, can't, didn't come out of my tongue yet. Another roommate pushed the door in. Moira Wolf, you're on 818. They say you've got 2 puppies. The so-called 818 refers to the school's spit wall, most of which are anonymous submissions. And this one is no exception. The roommate posted the link in the group. I took a deep breath, clicked on it and looked at it. Oh, don't say anything else. It's really humiliating not to go to work in a media company for this title. 818 that by Fumai, and the 2 little milk dogs she raised. Hey, I laughed shyly, and my roommate looked at me with a fool's look. I shook my phone. Although she calls me Shira Fumi. Roommate, I don't think Moira Wolf should be called by Fumai. She should be called silly by Tan. Agreed. The 2 roommates stared at me left and right. And read the submission well. It's nothing. It's just that the title is strong. And the accompanying photo was taken on the day Alvis Hoil beat up the dog Liar. And I was standing next to Alvis Hoil. The angle was very strange. And it looked. I looked up at him slightly. With a meek attachment. Belch. This photo is not taken at a good level. I have goosebumps. What kind of White Lotus expression is this? The roommate leaned over to take a look and said with a smile, I think you're still in love with Alvis Hoil. Look at your eyes. It's clear that you're still in love. I scratched away the photo and firmly denied it. The contributor said that I first adopted a dog Liar, and then I was not satisfied with Alvis Hoil, and the 2 little milk dogs were jealous for me, and finally Alvis Hoil won, not only beating my rival, but also encouraging me to take the money from my rival. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. The comments are also a carnival. Do you want to see what you're talking about? Is Alvis Hoil a puppy with small milks? Thank you. I drank too much and quarreled with Alvis Hoil last time and was almost abolished. Can he be fostered? I don't believe it. Who is this by Fumai? Did anyone push me? There's a commotion upstairs. You've got to have someone Alvis Hoil's face first. It's good to be rich. +1. The back is neatly painted with +1. There are also a few trumpets who scolded me, saying that I was trying to beat up the white rich beauty. And some said that I was unilaterally pestering Alvis Hoil. I didn't pay any attention to it, and at the current rate of information change at the university, it wouldn't be a few days before their attention would be on me, until an ID is called. The person who left a comment. Correction. My sister's little milk dog is only me, and it has nothing to do with the one who was beaten. The next second, I watched. It became Alvis Hoil. Thanks to Alvis Hoil's tuba speech, everyone shifted their positions from the comment section to the school group. It was pulled by the previous senior. There were no teachers and counselors, and the speech was more casual. I took a look, and it was all in Alvis Hoil. I quickly sent him a Weshit message, and asked him not to respond to any more. But he ignored me, and the more he danced in the crowd, the more crazy he became. Alvis Hoil, know why? He should. Alvis Hoil, sister, of course, it's fun. I'm the same year as her. Alvis Hoil, SHHH. There was a blackness in front of my eyes. He didn't mention that the 2 of us had a good time and broke up again. But chattering about this mess is not much better than digging deep into the past love history. What are you chasing? Who wants him to chase? What's even more infuriating is that my roommate smiled and spread the phone in front of me. Alvis Hoil actually opened the permission of the circle of friends and posted a post, which is a screenshot of my transfer to him, with the text, "Thank you, sister, Moira Wolf." The roommate's face soured. I see what you mean by being sassy and promiscuous. Peacocks are not as courtable as him. I clutched my phone, my eyelids jumping, but the messages to Alvis Hoil were all in vain. After more than half an hour, the people in the group made sure that he would not speak anymore and gradually stopped. Alvis Hoil seemed to have finally found the time to reply to me, but only 2 words, "Come down." I got up from my chair, and sat down again. My flushed face was reflected in the small mirror on the table, and Alvis Hoil must not be allowed to see me so humiliated. So I typed, "It's too late, let's talk about something on Weshit." Alvis Hoil, it's not too late. Come down. I'll take you out of school. And I'm not coming back today. I watched it several times with my eyes wide open, and my heart was beating faster than the beat of a drum. Me, what are you talking about? Me, we've broken up. Me, I just didn't break up. I won't agree to. With you, Alvis Hoil. Alvis Hoil, take you to the internet. Alvis Hoil, what are you thinking? Sister. Alvis Hoil, want to open it. Finally going to do it to me. An innocent little milk dog. Alvis Hoil and I are going to die if we say anything today. Before I rushed down the dormitory building, I didn't forget to put some no makeup cream on my face. Alvis Hoil, standing under a street lamp leaning on a pure black motorcycle, saw me come down. He threw out the cigarette in his hand and stomped on it, then ate 2 mints in front of me. Me, rely on. This is hinting at me. Come here. He called me indistinctly with sugar in his mouth. I walked over and he stared at me. What are you looking at? What's on the face? Peeled. As he spoke, Alvis Hoil reached out and rubbed it twice, staining half of his fingers with white greasy. I pulled his hand away. The tips of my ears burned. No skinning. No makeup cream. Makeup cream. He smiled and fumbled to hold my hand. Makeup so late. I stared at my toes, insisting that I hadn't taken it off yet. It's like this every time. It's clear that it's me who wants to ask the teacher for the blame. But I was quickly defeated, and it was difficult to parry. Alvis Hoil took out a thick coat and put it over me, and said softly, "Open your hand. I can wear it myself. Open your hand." I had no choice but to comply, and the zipper was pulled up to my neck, and he scratched my chin as if he had accidentally caused me to tremble. I looked at him with round eyes, and he took out another helmet and put it on my head. And by the way, he raised his hand to pull my bangs up. Don't move my bangs. Poof. Alvis Hoil laughed and shrugged his shoulders, as he slammed me into the back seat of the motorcycle. Hug me, and don't fall. I said, glancing at the saddle. I'll just tug it. Alvis Hoil didn't say anything. His hands clenched the handles, and with a roar, the motorcycle rushed out like a dormant beast. I kind of knew why he didn't insist. Because the moment the motorcycle went out, I was almost thrown out because of inertia, and in order to save my life, I honestly hugged his waist. Alvis Hoil laughed, his voice shaking through his chest. For a moment, I couldn't tell if the bike was shaking, or if my heart was shaking. In the middle of the night, he and I were carried by the wind, almost becoming one. Squeak! The motorcycle stopped at the entrance of a residential area. I rubbed my buzzing ears, and got out of the car and looked at Alvis Hoil with a little confusion. No internet access. Well, said Alvis Hoil, the internet cafe is too messy, and smells of smoke to you like. I also have a computer at home. Me, farewell. Then he turned to run, but he grabbed him by the waist. This is an apartment, not far from the school. I can't tell how good the environment is, but it is also the cleanest in the old community. I followed him, stepping on his shadow with every step, and he seemed to notice something, and laughed twice, but did not stop. Seriously, when I first met him, he didn't like to laugh. He didn't like to be so sassy. He refused to talk about people thousands of miles away, and more often than not, he was full of anger, and I always felt that he would suddenly punch me. Later, the fist was not touched, and it was knocked by the wall. Alvis Hoil said he liked me. I just wanted to learn, lied to him, and said he had a partner, and he said, don't mind having one more. In the most critical year of my senior year of high school, I secretly fell in love with him, behind my parents' back. The most outrageous time was in the school's Minxie building. Except for the holiday makeup class, no one usually went there. We hid in the empty classroom, secretly kissing. It was a very innocent kiss, just 4 lip flaps touching each other, without any skill to speak of. Made my whole body tingle, my heart beat so fast, and even now I think about it, my scalp is numb. What are you thinking? Alvis Hoil grabbed me and almost hit the elevator door. No, Moira Wolf, he said to me, you're so red. Thank you. Hearing this, my face burned even more. Alvis Hoil slouched. You don't really want to get my innocent little milk dog, do you? I glared at him. He didn't want to be cheeky enough to commit a crime against the wind, and leaned into my ear. Sister, You have to take it easy. I can't stand it too much. I lifted my leg and stomped on him. Shut up. Thank you. The elevator doors opened, and Alvis Hoyle's house was in the innermost part of the hallway. There was no light in the room, and there was a faint smell of disinfectant water, which smelled good. Don't you turn on the lights? There's no power. He spoke nonchalantly, took my hand and pulled me into the room. Click. The sound of the door locking became distinct. I was gently pressed against the door by him, close enough to feel his breathing. Alvis Hoyle, you let me go first. Don't. He didn't do anything more excessive, but he didn't let go of me either, just rubbed around the side of my neck like a big dog, and then gently sucked the. He personally pierced my ears as a memorial to my senior year of high school. I was stiff. My face burned from my neck to my neck, and my hands and feet felt numb and limp after I realized it. Turn the lights on. I could hear my voice trembling. The next second, Alvis Hoyle bit my lip hard. The young kiss in memory was unrecognizable, and Alvis Hoyle in front of him seemed eager to leave a mark on me, as if so that I would never leave him again. And he kissed deeply and bit painfully. I whimpered and tried to push him away, but he grabbed my hands and held them to the top of my head. Moira Wolf. Sister. Alvis Hoyle was slurring his words, and my tears flowed, and I was pecked and kissed by him. He said, Moira Wolf, I don't mind you have another boyfriend. What? I forgot to react and stared at him. He finally let go of me and took a slight step back, his eyes still on me. I said, I don't mind if you try a new relationship. You can go and date other guys, compare them, and see who is the best for you. Alvis Hoyle curled his lips and smiled a little maniacally. I know what I am. Of course we are not suitable. It is my selfish desire to possess you. You should have had a better person. But, he smoked a cigarette in front of me for the first time, and the patina-colored light of the fire was bright in the darkness. But no one will love you more than I do. The best fit will never be the one who loves you the most. Moira Wolf, go ahead. Whether it's a few more times or dozens of relationships, I'll wait for you to come back. I was blown away by that. For more than 10 minutes, we were speechless in the room where the lights were not on. In the 20th minute, I reacted. When this comes out of Alvis Hoyle's mouth, that's fart. Do you really want me to have sex with someone else? Why do you still kiss me? 80% of this dog is selling to me. Okay. As my voice fell, I could clearly feel Alvis Hoyle's whole body tense. Alvis Hoyle, remember what you said? It doesn't matter who I'm with from now on. You're willing to wait, but it's none of the business with me. I was trying to pull back a game when I saw a dampness slip across Alvis Hoyle's face as the moonlight wore on. He cried. Alvis Hoyle would cry. Did I go too far? I was repeatedly entangled in my heart. On the one hand, I felt that this was still his bitter ploy, but on the other hand, I couldn't stop being soft-hearted, thinking that Alvis Hoyle was really good to me, although he managed a lot, and sometimes he was sick and crazy. But he held me in the palm of his hand and was afraid of it, and it is no exaggeration to say that I would casually say something I liked, and he would get it for me, the next day. I broke his heart a little. I mentioned the breakup in the first place, and it was very hasty, because I felt that our personalities were incompatible. Alvis Hoyle didn't say anything that day, just asked me if I had decided. I nodded. He lit a cigarette, and then looked at my back as he did every time, watching me go. Moira Wolf. He took my hand to wipe away his tears, and then took me into his arms. Inseparable. So have you figured out who you're looking for your next relationship? That peerless little milk dog. Don't look at him pretending to be human. He never washes socks in the dormitory. Poof. I couldn't hold back my laughter. Alvis Hoyle still has the face to say that the dog liar was fake at the beginning. Only in complaining about Prince Alvis Hoyle's illness is true. Wait. I got out of his arms and looked at him. Did you already know that his online dating partner was me? Otherwise, why would he comment under the circle of friends, where dog scammers ask for fake photos? Finally found out. Alvis Hoyle gave me a stupid look, and raised his hand to turn on the light. Sure enough, there was no power outage. I really didn't expect that you would think that I was short of money to sell photos everywhere. Give me back my 50,000 yuan. No, sister. The package is in effect, and it will not be returned. The atmosphere suddenly relaxed. I slept in Alvis Hoyle's bedroom that night, and he slept on the couch, and the whole bed smelled of him, so much so that I didn't sleep for half the night. The next day, he drove me back to school on his motorcycle. "You're not going to class?" I asked. He turned his back and waved at me. "Something's going on. Come back in the evening." For the first time, I watched his back and leave. My eyelids were jumping all day, until the evening. Alvis Hoyle didn't come back in the evening. The lingering drizzle was blown into the bones of the people. I lied and took a leave of absence and went down the street to find Alvis Hoyle. He wasn't in that apartment, not in the park we used to frequent, not even in the alley where he had fought before. I searched aimlessly, but I wasn't in a hurry. I can't sleep anyway, and when I find him, I can ask him if he wants to eat the bean curd that was sold at 4 a.m. at the school gate. The rain began to fall heavier. An off-white wall was torn out of my memory, and Alvis Hoyle sat under it smoking, and the whole wall crumbled and collapsed in smoke. I opened the ride-hailing app, crossed half the city, and finally found the wall at daylight. Alvis Hoyle literally sat under the wall and smoked. He was a little embarrassed. The blood from the deep wound on his forehead snaked down and covered one eye, and there were no visible wounds on his arm, the most serious one missing a piece of flesh. It may have hurt so much that he shook it twice before lighting the cigarette, and after taking the first puff, the whole person relaxed. And then, he turned his head and saw me. The look suddenly sharpened, and Alvis Hoyle's lips moved. Before he could say the word, "Get out," I rushed over and gave him a kick. "Alvis Hoyle, Moira Wolf, what are you kicking me for?" "Me, you owe kick." I looked around at this old slum-like neighborhood that could be called Alvis Hoyle's dry frame resort. Alvis Hoyle stood up and tugged at me. "Let's go. What's there to see?" I didn't make a sound, and took him to the hospital to bandage. Dua couldn't catch up. We went back to the apartment, and I cooked him a bowl of porridge. Alvis Hoyle sat on the sofa with his legs on his feet and beckoned to me. "It hurts. You come to feed me." I obediently scooped up a spoonful, blew it down, and fed it to his mouth. Alvis Hoyle panicked and moved back. "Baby, don't kill people too much. You can give it a good time." I sneered and threw the spoon back into the bowl. "Explain. What are you doing?" This isn't the first time Alvis Hoyle has gone crazy. When we first got together, I also saw him fight and be ruthless. At that time, I felt that we might not be a good fit. No girl wants to live a precarious life. But Alvis Hoyle was so kind to me that I indulged in his tenderness, and put off the love affair again and again. Alvis Hoyle didn't go until a high school reunion, and a boy in his class told me that Alvis Hoyle's family was complicated, and advised me to get out as soon as possible. "How complicated?" I asked. "Alvis Hoyle," he said, "was a murderer who killed his mother, and it was hard not to be a pervert when he grew up in such an environment. That's really complicated." I didn't think about breaking up that day, because it was quite light for people to say it, and for me to listen to it. I comforted myself that it was his father who went in, not him, and the grievances of the previous generation should not be carried over to him. But when I got back to school and met Alvis Hoyle, he crushed me against a tree. "Moira Wolf, I don't like you attending this kind of event." Seeing that I ignored him, he relieved himself and took me into his arms. "I'll be jealous. Those wild men have bad intentions towards you." At that moment, I understood that the grudges of the previous life would not continue, but would take root in his flesh and blood, and reshape the person's character into a distorted shape with a force that mortals could not resist. Alvis Hoyle's love. I can't afford it, so I broke up with him the next day. But luckily, he didn't keep him. There's nothing to explain. In the middle of the moment, Alvis Hoyle smiled. "It's all settled." My eyes twitched slightly. Are people still alive?" Poof! Alvis Hoyle laughed at me. "Watching too many TV shows. In a society governed by the rule of law, do you think I will kill someone?" He avoided the important and said lightly, "It was the trouble he caused before, and he cleaned up the other side yesterday, and he will not come to find fault in the future." I breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't demand much from him. I didn't kill anyone. Alvis Hoyle was injured and lay down for 2 weeks, and I took care of them for 2 weeks, and we both failed at the end of the day. What's even more hateful is that someone is so talented that he has passed the makeup exam once, and I, again, failed the course. As he came out of the classroom, Alvis Hoyle said as he walked backwards, "Sister, do you need special services? What? You kiss me, I'll make up for you. Save that, get out." On New Year's Eve, heavy snow came without warning, overwhelmingly and blinding the eyes. When I was told that the broken wall of the old town had collapsed with snow, Alvis Hoyle and I had been reconciled for 3 days. Blame me, I didn't resist the temptation. In order to pass the makeup exam, I kissed him, and he was relied upon. He has changed a lot and no longer controls my social circle, but the puppy pen in his bones has not changed. Yes, he told me to go, but he had to follow. I went to dinner, he rushed to check out. I went to the hot springs, and he bought the ticket at his own expense. I can't say anything about him. I got angry a few times, and finally somehow it turned into a misfire. Soon, even the counselor knew that I had a very clingy boyfriend, so much so that in the psychology class after the start of school, the teacher analyzed the psychology of love and called us to give a speech. Alvis Hoyle. If I hadn't stopped him that day, Alvis Hoyle would have been able to shake off a few pieces of chicken tenderloin from the breakfast he bought for me when he chased me. Sick of it, Moira Wolf. Heh. The sun shone brighter in his eyes than ever. The snow has stopped. The sun is out. I love you. Well, Extra 1, Alvis Hoyle's perspective. Excerpt from the diary of Alvis Hoyle. The dilapidated and yellowed canopies are lined up, and in the poor tiled buildings, only garbage can be seen everywhere. It was my home memory. At home, I can never finish my homework. My dad, who gets angry and shakes his fists when heavily, and my mom, who screams helplessly but refuses to leave. In Chinese class, the teacher told me that home is a place that can shelter from the wind and rain, and it is a warm harbor. No, the home is a disgusting, maggot-infested rat's belly and a crime scene surrounded by a yellow cordon. My mom died in this dilapidated house she wouldn't give up. My dad was arrested and imprisoned, staring at me with cloudy eyes, and calling my name before leaving. Alvis Hoyle. I've woken up from nightmares countless times, his nervous cries echoing in my ears. After that, I was no longer called Alvis Hoyle, or even, hey. They called me, son of a murderer, and said that I would grow up to be a terrorist, who endangered society like that person. So they waved their fists like my dad, shouted justice, and landed on me. It's a pity, I'm not a reluctant person. One of those children was scared of me, and I became even more skinless and shameless, and their parents came to me, and angrily pointed at me, in the teacher's office and scolded me. I don't care. I can even laugh, and say, looking for my parents. My mom is dead, my dad is in prison. You go. This was followed by more vicious swearing. It really doesn't matter. But then I went to high school, and because it was divided by school district, I actually went to a good school. After a year of mixing in high school, he became the boss of this film. I felt stupid, but I needed an outlet to vent, until one time, the gangsters in the society failed to rob me, but I searched my wallet. At the mouth of the dark alley, the little girl was born white and pure, and stood there, frightened and stupid. I patronized and watched her, and one of them didn't pay attention, and let the thugs run away. Well, it's a bit of a shame. So I lit a cigarette, and the little girl frowned sensitively, coughed twice, and I snuffed out the cigarette again. Rub. Even more humiliating. Have you been robbed? Her voice is also nice and soft. I approached her with a smile and deliberately frightened. I'm a robber. Take out the money. She really took it. A pile of red hairy grandpa, hundreds of dollars, a brain stuffed into my hand, and a pink band-aid. The next time you encounter something like this, remember to tell the teacher. With that, she left. It turned out to be a delicate flower raised by a rich family. No wonder. I stared at her back, and an unknown desire surged up in my heart. I want her so much that I want to hear her talk to me again. This is very abnormal. I know. At first I was able to control it, but in the 3rd year of high school, we became classmates, and I gradually lost control. I quit smoking and started studying, approaching her pretending to be someone who was no different from her. She has a good temper and is generous, but she is just as good to me as she is to others, which makes me a little jealous. Fortunately, I found a solution. I found that every time I got hurt in front of her, She would frown, and hand me a pink band-aid. She was deceived by me. She thought I was pitiful. She would bring me a bottle of milk every morning, and she would give me a lecture on the questions. I didn't tell her. In fact, I would do those questions. When graduation was approaching, I said that I liked her, but she didn't dare to look at me. Her ears were red, and she said that she had a partner. I said I wouldn't mind having one more. She was amused by me, and agreed to try it out together, but it didn't interfere with her studies. I thought being with her would slow me down my run of control, but no, the loss of control intensified, and I didn't want to stick to her all the time. As long as she's out of my sight, I wonder if something will happen to her. Just like the day of my mother's accident, I came back late outside, noisy, and the last sight was a blurry mass of flesh. But I could not say anything, and even trembled, afraid that one day I would hear that title from her mouth, as well, The Murderer's Son. After graduating from high school, she and I went to the same university. I thought the future would be clearer, but it was all shattered by a class reunion. The boy who had been beaten by me in junior high school and was in the same class with me in high school told her everything. He said, "My dad was a murderer and killed my mom." That day, before the party was over, he excitedly called me and asked me to wait for a breakup. What can I do? I could only take her in my arms, and cautiously ask her if she would not go to such gatherings again. Don't meet such people again. Don't know my past. The next day, she asked me out and broke up. I had the urge in my heart to cry out to keep her, and stay with me forever, but I just lit a cigarette and watched her back get farther and farther away. The boy was right. Moira Wolf shouldn't have met a whistleblower like this. But me, what am I like? A being who shouldn't exist. A complete lunatic. I heard the news about Moira Wolf again. It turned out to be my roommate. He and she were in an online relationship. Every day sister is long and sister is short, and he cheated her out of money. So the heart that had been silent was restless again, and all that was going through it was Moira Wolf. We talked again, and this time I pretended better. I spread out those unspeakable desires in front of her in a more straightforward way. I'd rather she think I'm sassy and promiscuous, unmasculine, than afraid of me. The liar was beaten by me, asked for the money back, and took the opportunity to hug her. Looking at her back again that day, I felt that it was worth dying. The diary is broken here, and the next few pages have been torn out. Extra 2, secret. My name is Moira Wolf, a rich and stupid white sweet rich second generation, who is rich but has been deceived. My love affair with Alvis Hoil was not very favorable to the family. It's not because of his dad, it's because our personalities are so different. I've never seen any storms and waves, and the only thing that didn't go well when I was a kid was being forced to eat the broccoli I hated. But Alvis Hoil had too hard to live. I can't imagine that kind of difficulty. If I were in his situation, I might not survive for 3 days. But he survived, and it didn't look too twisted. Alvis Hoil probably didn't know how the first time I saw him, how he was threatened with a knife by a thug, and how he snatched a knife and robbed him in reverse. I watched the whole thing. I thought to myself, this is fucking cool. It's like a movie. So I couldn't help but take 2 steps closer. But I didn't expect to be discovered by him. He said he was the one who robbed me, and scared me into taking out the money, which is exactly what I wanted. Alvis Hoil's cuffs were a little torn, and a pair of shoes were worn white. I think he should have a hard time, but given how good looking he is, I'm willing to help him. I've been haunted by him ever since. He seemed to me, it's a bit of a strange filter, and I always feel that I'm NAVE, kind, and simply ignorant. But in fact, I stole snacks in class, pretended to have a stomachache between classes, and cheated on quizzes, and I could tell at a glance that Alvis Hoil's injuries were self-inflicted, but I didn't know what to say, so I could only hand him a band-aid. During that time, my mother thought that I had eaten the band-aid, otherwise why would it be so bad? Later, Alvis Hoil confessed to me that I was secretly in love with him, behind my mother's back. He always treated me with care, like guarding some fragile treasure. I want to say that I don't need to do this, but I can touch his eyes, and I can't say anything. I can only meekly soothe his uneasy emotions again and again. It wasn't until the day I knew what was going on in his house that I was shaken for the first time. Then Alvis Hoil's exclusivity scared me, so I fled. Actually, I didn't really want to break up. I knew he was from a bad background and his personality was flawed, but I really liked him. But the reality of our relationship is all too obvious. I couldn't make sense of my thoughts. And I happened to meet a milk dog brother, who had a similar voice to him. I pinned some indescribable feelings on online dating, and as a result, Ziddy was deceived. Luckily, fate compensated me with an Alvis Hoil. On the day when it was drizzling, and I couldn't find him, the most real panic was a clear reminder to me that I still liked him. I never asked what he had been doing on the night of his disappearance, and I would never say it again. It's a secret that belongs to our common heart. I want to open it. A person's life is still very long, and I am willing to wait for him to grow up. Wait for him to really wake up from that nightmare and really grow up. The end.